I want to welcome all of you to this episode of the Houndsman XP Podcast and this episode of The Journey. We really appreciate you taking time to tune in and listen to us. And in this episode, we're going to cover a lot of ground. We're going to talk about dogs. We're going to talk about problem solving. We're going to talk a little bit about everything. It's just straight dog talk. One of the things that we got into and we touched on, and I want to make sure we give full credit here to a houndsman from Texas, a coyote hunter named Shannon Raska. Shannon posted something on his timeline here a while back, and it was a quote, and it stuck with me. And the quote was, "Work on the dog and the dog gets better. Work on yourself and all the dogs get better." So while we are going to talk about dog problems, we're going to dive into how important it is for us to step back and work on ourselves as well as houndsmen. And it's a great conversation. If you guys haven't been paying attention, I'm going to shift gears on you a little bit here. Man, we got a lot of cool stuff going on out there. We've got Marketplace for all our Houndsman XP gear. Outer Agenda is cranking out the design work, and we've got everything over there from hound brain to logo wear. But you go to our website at houndsmenxp.com and click on the shop tab there. It's going to take you right into our marketplace. And Seth is working hard with Derek from Outer Agenda to get good, current, and fun stuff out there where you can represent. I also want to give a shout out to Lauren for all of her work over on social media. She's keeping us posted on stuff, but it's all good, folks. She did a great job designing this website. We're hoping you're enjoying it. It's going to continue to expand. We're expanding to YouTube. Houndsman XP is on a roll, and we want to make sure that you're coming with us. And one way you can do that is by going to our website at houndsmenxp.com, click the support tab, and join us on Patreon. Seth is working his tail off over there with all kinds of bonus material. We made all of that stuff public in September so that you could see what's going on over there. We also rolled out a big announcement and a partnership with Sportsman's Alliance. When you join us on Patreon at the Truck to Tree Dog level, you're going to get all the exclusive content. You're going to be eligible for all of the drawings all year long. Those prize packages alone are $100 a month. It's $250 for the semi-annual drawing and up to $1,000 for the annual drawing. Then you put the Sportsman's Alliance membership on top of that. You're getting representation from the long-standing advocacy group for hound hunters. They set the bar, they set the standard, and great organization. So you're going to get that membership. You're going to get the Advocate, which is their magazine, a quarterly magazine. You're going to get email updates on what's going on and how we are being attacked and what you can do to stand up and get involved and stand in the gap for hunting freedom in the United States of America. On top of that, they're going to send you a 2-knife set and some other cool stuff. So Houndsman XP gear, it's all there, folks. I mean, we're trying to make the best value we can for our Patreon supporters. And I just want to take a second here and talk about what that Patreon support means to me as the founder of Houndsman XP. When I started this podcast, I wanted a voice for houndsmen. I wanted to entertain you. I wanted to have fun with this thing. But the main reason that this podcast was started, because I saw a deficit. Throughout my professional career, I saw that houndsmen were not represented at the table with game managers, with legislators. We were always getting kicked in the teeth and treated like second-class citizens when it came to wildlife management laws, rules, plans, whatever it was. And I wanted to change that. And we have had several people step up to the plate and drive their stake in the dirt and draw the line in the sand and say, hey, we are too. And that's how I view our Patreon supporters, people who have stepped up to the plate and said enough is enough. We're going to stand our ground. We're going to stand in the gap. We're going to fight the good fight until we can't fight it anymore. And partnerships with organizations like Sportsman's Alliance, man, that is huge. It's going to give us some teeth there So join us on Patreon. Go to houndsmenxp.com. If you need gear, shop from our sponsors first, because they have put their company name on the line and said they are willing to stand up for this too, and they deserve your support. So thank you to all of our sponsors. Shop there. Also, shop in our Redbubble store, our marketplace. All that stuff helps us keep this show coming. We love to be entertaining. We like to have fun, but at times we have to step up and talk about the tough stuff. And we appreciate every one of you that is willing to hang in there with us and listen to how we can all come together, be a collaborated voice, unified voice for the future of our hunting freedoms. Thank you for listening to the Houndsman XP podcast. I hope you will consider putting your name on the rolls with other extreme performance houndsmen over on Patreon and helping us in this quest to secure our hunting freedom. That's a wrap for this pre-roll. Let's get into this podcast.
On today's journey, we are going to talk dogs. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. You know, the journey's about making us better, making our hounds better, making the experience hunting better. And man, have I struggled with that the last month and a half. So today I have the founder, the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Chris Powell riding in the co-host chair. How's everything up your way this morning, Chris?
The weather is cooled off. I just got back from Virginia this week, bear hunting. And I'm in the same boat with you, man. I tell you, it's we need to solve some problems.
Yeah, golly.
Problem solving.
A pitchfork and a fire couldn't fix it on my end, that's for sure.
You've been catching bear. You catch bear every time you go.
Not every time, but yeah. I don't want to get into the logistics of the pack because that's another whole episode. But you know, I really got to spend some time with just my dogs and broke down some things, some pieces that I'm missing, some things that I want. You know, my expectations are high, and everybody should be. And that's something we're going to talk about on today's episode. But I want to go back and I want to give everybody an update on the supplement that I've been using from Olivier, the One TDC, the joint supplement.
Isn't that company? It's called Works So Well, right?
Works So Well. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's on our show notes. If you guys try to buy the product, you can go to it and put the Houndsman XP 15 and get a discount. So it's been several podcasts ago. I know you guys heard me say that I was going to start giving it to one of the old dogs. So I've got an old dog here named Mac that has.
Hey, can I say something real quick about that deal?
Yep.
So yeah, I think this is important for everybody to know. We're not getting paid from Work So Well to sponsor the product. Mm-mm. We told Olivier, I told him, I said, hey man, we want to work with this stuff for a while and see if we like it. And that's what I try to do. I've done that with every sponsor for the show. It's stuff that I would use myself. So I don't want anybody to be confused and thinking that we're just plugging it because they're giving us money. Mm-mm. He sent us some product. We said we'd try it. And I told him we'd be harsh critics about and really look at it and evaluate it before we ever talked about bringing him on as a sponsor. So I wanted to make sure that we had that out there before anybody got the wrong idea.
Yeah, no, he seems really genuine. I've had several conversations. One of the things that really
you did a podcast with him. You remember what episode that was? I mean, that was one of my favorite. The guy's just easy to listen to. You can tell he knows what he's talking about. It's a few journeys ago. It's a few episodes ago in the journey.
Yeah, I don't. But you know, I had COVID a couple weeks ago, a month ago, whatever. And you know, he texted me and checked on me. I guess Lauren had told him that I was down, and I thought, you know what, that's pretty cool that you know he's checking in. But back to the product. So I got an older dog here that's got some joint. He broke his leg when he was 6. He limps on that leg. That's the one that Olivier and I started talking about. And Olivier's like, Heath, put it on topically and then give him 2 pills, kind of jump start him and then or 3 pills and then knock it down to 2. Exactly what I did. And guys, I'm telling you, 2 days after implementing this and giving him this supplement, I saw almost immediate results. Now, did the limp go away? No, it did not. But he was not dragging. He was not limping near as bad. He was covering ground a little bit quicker. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm still a little skeptical. So
Sure.
Anyway, I continue to use it, and I'm still giving him the product. And, I usually just use this dog just to start tracks. That's it. I don't care if he makes a race, have no desire to make a race. I rig him and let him rig the tracks, and then I'll put my young dogs down, or I'll get it started with him. So I'm kind of using him as he's kind of a fill-in for me. He's getting everything started, and then so I've used him a lot that way.
I've used him a little bit.
Yeah. I mean,
when I got him, when I drove around over there in the mountains, I was like, put him on my truck.
Yeah. But yeah, I've seen instant results. Like I said, 2 days. So now I'm giving it to, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm giving it to 6 dogs now. And most of my dogs, the oldest one I'm giving it to other than him is a 6-year-old. I'm giving it to Pinot, which is my service dog. I don't see any change in Pinot, but again, I didn't see any issues to be doing it. So hopefully his joints are getting lubricated, and the teeth problem, I did put it on his gums to start with, and I give it to Spook and Kate. And then I had a dog get beat up pretty bad a couple weeks ago, and it was in his front shoulder. So I started giving him the product, and he just now turned 2, like he just turned 2. And I started giving him the product, and as bad as he got it, like the heel time, and I've not put him back in the woods yet because it was a pretty good.
Yeah, he was a wreck.
Yeah. But as far as in the pen and in the yard, like his recovery time looked, it looked like almost like it was in half. So the product, I have seen results. Olivier did tell me that you're going to see it in your older dogs. You're going to see that almost instant result in your older dogs. Your younger dogs, you're probably not going to tell. That's exactly what I'm seeing with the product. I know that I know Lauren's using it, and I know a good friend of mine took it to. He bought a case of it and took it to Maine, and I've talked to him a couple of times, and he says that it seems like to him that the recovery time for him has been cut in half. So, guys, try the product if you wish. Like I said, you can go to worksowell.com and try.
I'm using it on 3 dogs here.
Yeah, I knew you were going to. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw results in Jazz. Jazz is going to be 8. And I just noticed after this last litter of pups, I just felt like she was losing a few steps. And she's had her lick yet, so she's not positive right now, but I think it still affects her in the warmer weather. But I started her on it, and then of course I've got some for the wife's dogs, Roxy the boxer and Axel the pit bull. Axel's had joint problems and different things. He's not very old. He broke his leg as well, and but man, I've been putting miles on him, and I've seen a big difference, especially in Jazz. When I first started working her and roading her, she was doing everything she could to keep up with the side by side when I was roading them, and now she's running. She's running. So I think it's a combination of weather. It's cooled off. So that's a side effect of having a Lakia is not being able to tolerate hot weather. But I've also seen recovery time I used it. Been using it, hunted hard 3 days this week, and every dog was ready to get back on the truck the next day. So,
yeah, I mean, like I said, I've seen pretty much the same results, and you know, the downtime seems like it's cut in half. Like I said, I'm pleasantly surprised. Let's say that I'm pleasantly surprised about the results that I've seen, because I'm not a big. I mean, I've tried a lot of different supplements. I've tried a lot of different things over the years, and it just seems like most of the time it seems like it's you watch Andy Griffith, and it's the old the
recipe.
Yeah, the guy that's selling the elixir.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and he's selling it, and everybody's feeling good, but. But that's kind of what I think about when I think about supplements, and I know they're important.
Yeah, snake oil.
Yeah, I know that
Yep.
it's important that we keep our dogs healthy. Like I said, I've tried a bunch of different things over the years, and I have seen enough results in my dogs to keep. I'm going to keep using this product because of the results I've seen. Now, can I say that they are? I don't know what to expect. Maybe as far as they're not going to fix all the elements, but yeah. I mean, like I said, Mac acts a whole lot different. I've been giving it to the dogs that I'm running hard, and I don't have the downtime. Like, you put.
Well, our time's so short. Our time is so short for either, because of Virginia bear season. What is it? 3 months you can run dogs on bear in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And, for me, driving to Virginia, I don't need dogs that can just run one day.
Right.
I need them that can run multiple days. But then you look at the overall. Jazz, like I said earlier, Jazz is 8 years old, and it seems like yesterday I was starting her. And so I want to maximize her longevity and her performance and everything with quality feed, with the dogs are hydrated, keeping dogs hydrated, right, and then finding this product as well has been pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think it's helping me accomplish that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll give it to Kevin and Nancy. I use the, I use the dogs are hydrated, the glucosamine, or not the glucose, but the glycerol. I used it a lot because it was hot in August, and even up into about mid-September. I was pre-doing my dogs just like they suggest, and I did not have the problems I did last year. Last year I didn't do it as much, and took my dogs a long time to get in shape. The dogs ran a little harder when I used that product. So this year me and you both. I mean, when you were here, you were baiting your dogs every morning. So yep. So
I think it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 water jugs in my truck. One says pre-workout, and the other one says post. Everybody's like, "What's this mean?" And I'm like, "This is what you give them before, and this is what you give them after."
That's right.
So, but yeah, I mean, that stuff works. Anything to get a little bit of an edge. Just.
I need every edge I can get with the dogs I'm hunting, Heath.
Well, don't we all? I mean, like I said, if my dog, that 30 extra minutes of running, they may catch that bear when it's hot.
Right.
I want my dogs to recoup. Like as soon as I get back to the truck, I'm giving them the maltodextrin in the water, helping them rejuvenate everything. And in the next morning, basically they're ready to go. Now we need to, put this disclaimer out there that if your dogs aren't in shape, that makes a huge difference. They've got to be able to rest and recoup, and when they're not in shape. So, anyway, we won't get into the exercising and the dog part.
I was trying to set you up for a segue there into what we're really going to talk about talking about the having the advantage for the dog type of dog I'm hunting.
Oh, I'm being nice today. them old grizz skinners, that's what they call them. Plot dogs. Again, I'm not colorblind. I don't care. I don't care what color it is. A good dog's a good dog. And anybody that knows what a hound is, they should. I know everybody's got their own type that they like, and I started off with plots, and man, if I could own another good one, you know, I'd love to have one. And you know, I had this conversation, and we'll just kind of get into what we're going to talk about. I had this conversation the other day with Wesley. You know, that old blue female that I had, Belle, that was out of Dale Cameron stuff. You know, she's been probably one of my nicest dogs that I've owned, and a trail dog. I mean, in my mind, and we'll get to that. She was a true trail dog. I mean, she took them as they came. She worked them out. She beat them to death, and she jumped a lot of bear that some of the other dogs didn't.
She was the type of dog. Was she the type of dog that when you let her off the truck and everybody else was like, you know, let's go find a good one, you're like, nope, just let her roll. You know, was she that type of dog? She's gonna figure this out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, you know, like I said, get back. The perfect dog. This is what the title of this is: the perfect dog. And guys, you know, I've been training dogs for right at 20 years in the law enforcement side, and running hounds for 30 years, and there is no perfect dog. There is none. There are some that's more consistent than others, and that's what we're all striving for, is that dog that's got that consistency. You know, you've said it, you know, I've said it, that dog that when you put him on the ground, you pretty much know what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get. But every once in a while, those dogs, they have some faux pas too. I mean, they can't figure something out, or, you know, maybe they get outrun, but there's no such thing as a perfect dog. And so what brought this whole topic up is, you know, a couple weeks ago, while we were hunting, you know, we have conversations. I'm sure everybody does. You know, we talk about dogs, we talk about life. You know, we just talk about stuff in general. And, you know, we were talking about dogs of, you know, and I think we had talked about this before, you know, dogs of past. And, you know, I was thinking,
the deader the better, buddy.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
Old Belk was probably a call, and you just having fond memories.
Yeah, I'd like to have a lot full of them. I'll tell you. And I mean, she wasn't the dog that caught all my bear. It was Ring, you know.
Yeah.
But Belle was such a pleasure to hunt. And I mean, you could rig her. She didn't rig the tracks that Ring would rig. But you could rig her. You could put her down on the ground. You could free cast her. You could hunt that dog any way you wanted to hunt her. You know, the difference between her and Ring is when you free casted Ring, he gone. He checked out of the country. I mean, you competition guys would love him, because you drop him loose, next thing you know, you heard him 2 mountains over treed. And it's like, dude, like, you can't do that. Not the style of hunting that I was doing at the time, and I don't like it now either, honestly. But that was his style. You know, you could follow behind Belle, and the stories with her and Frosty, my first real dog that would tree bear. You know, the stories that they told me. You know, that's what intrigued me about hunting, is those dogs could pick up an odor of an animal that had been through where I had walked and I had no knowledge of it. That's what intrigued me. That's what led me into the lifestyle that I have today. And following behind, you know, a couple of those dogs, you know, I learned a lot about hunting. I learned where the bear lived, you know, where they fed, where they bedded, you know, where they spent the majority of their time. And a lot of that was attributed to Frosty and Belle, the dogs that, you know, that I could literally walk behind when they were trailing. And it took me a long time as a young kid then, you know, in my early 20s, I had no clue what was going on. None. And then, you know, an old timer had started talking to me and kind of mentoring me. And, you know, one of the things that he had told me when it comes to dogs, he had told me this saying, and today it still rings in my head. When my dog's doing something that aggravates me or embarrasses me, this is what I tell myself, and this is what he told me 20 years ago. He's like, Heath, he's like, above and beyond all else, be true to thyself. If that dog's running deer, he's running deer. If that dog's doing a good job, he's doing a good job. You cannot grow your pack or your dogs if you're not honest about what they're doing. And when he told me that, back then, it didn't mean a whole lot. Okay, this old timer's telling me this, and okay, it is what it is. But as I've gotten older and as I've handled more dogs, it's a fact. Dogs are dogs. They have a mind of their own, and they're going to do what they want to do. So if my dog runs deer, all right, I'll get it. I'll fix it. Not a big deal. I used to get so bent out of shape. I mean, possums. When I was competition hunting my walker dog, possums were my nemesis. And I used to get so bent out of shape over my dog's, and he was a night champion. And going in there and slamming a possum in the edge of a cornfield or something.
How many casts did you lose because you treated possum on a night champion cast?
Several. I mean, I probably can't count them on one hand. I mean, several. And I used to get so bent out of shape about it. And then, 10 years after that, I'm like, all right, well, they're treeing game. That's better than running deer. My mindset changed and, whatever. And, I learned how to fix those things. I learned how to fix some of those issues. And I don't stress over them like I used to.
Well, one of the things that motivated me to want to do this podcast with you was, going back to Wesley again. I was sitting there and I was talking to him one day, and he's like, sometimes after I listen to podcasts, it makes me want to come home and clean out the kennel because you guys are hunting these great dogs. And I've tried to be very honest about what I'm hunting. The quality of dogs that I'm hunting right now, especially for bear, are not the types of dogs that I'm satisfied with. I'm not satisfied.
Uh-huh.
I think there's a lot of work to be done there, but I go through the same things. I hunted 3 days this week in Virginia, and I didn't catch a bear. I've got problems with these dogs that I need to rectify. But the thing is, you got to keep, there isn't anything terminal, where, their calls. One of my biggest problems is I don't trust my dogs, to be running the intended game. And I think a lot of that is because I haven't focused, I know that when there's no doubt in my mind that when I'm hunting with certain people, I can trust their dogs. That's all they do is they bear hunt their dogs. They broke them off other game, and I know there's dogs out there. I've hauled these calls all over the United States hunting everything from hogs to mountain lions. I mean, they are trashy, and I've got to check, and I've got to make sure that, and I got to watch Garmin's, and I got to know how a bear runs, and know the difference between the way a bear runs and the way a coyote runs, and stuff like that. I haven't coyote hunted them, but I'm not convinced that they won't burn one up if they get the opportunity. It's nothing. If they've been in the box for 4 or 5 hours, then I'm not convinced. And I've got to do some extinction training.
Yeah.
Once this coyote season opens up, and make sure that I'm not running coyotes off the rig.
Well, the coyotes are a nemesis for me. I'm pretty sure that Spook caught one the last day of the early season because he was out of pocket from everybody else, and the other three ended up treed, Kate and Houdini and Hart, and then two of Ben's dogs. They ended up treed around the end of the mountain, and they had got in with some other guys' dogs. So there was eight or nine dogs at that tree. But he was out of pocket. But you coyote hunters, if you guys could tell me why a dog wants to run another dog, I'd love to know. Because maybe it would be easier to break them off them stinking things for us. Like I said, don't have it happen a lot. It's 2 or 3 times a year for me. It's not, like you said, it's not detrimental, but it's aggravating. Especially,
I just want that dog when they open on the rig, that I'm positive and I'm confident that there's only one thing, and that's why I threw Jack on the truck.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I forget how he ended up on my truck, but I hauled him around because I was like, okay, if he barks,
yep,
then I know we're going to run a bear.
Yeah, and I mean, even I think we had this conversation too with the group. You know, a couple of times my dogs had opened on the rig and I wouldn't turn them loose, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "It ain't right." How do you know it ain't right? I'm like, "Listen," and Spook has an angry bark when it's a coyote. Like I can tell you now when he's on the ground, it's a little different when he's running. But when he's on the truck and when he comes out with that growl bark, it's not right. And I'm not cutting him loose. He just has a completely different tone about him, a different demeanor about him. And I'm like you know, when my dog's open, like my end goal would be when they open, it's a bear. No questions asked, I don't have to sit there and determine what tone he's in, what bark he's using. I like it when my dog's open, it's a bear, and that's what we're going to run. And the dogs, they go on. But yeah, so we had several conversations, during season, and, we were talking about, dogs and dogs in general and being perfect. And, one of the things in my canine training, and I'm going to revert this back to the hound world, because I think if we all take a step back and look in the mirror, and that's how we assess things. There's what they say: if you're pointing one finger out, there's two pointing back at you.
If you're a four-fingered guy, that's right. If you're usually it's one finger point, you got three pointing back at you for most people.
That's right. So that's one of the things I try to do with myself. I try to step back and say, okay, where am I at, and what am I doing? But so one of the things that I have seen throughout, especially in my canine career, is that there is such different opinions on dogs. And when I look at the hound side of it, it's even double. It's triple. What I see and what I'm evaluating, is not what, Chris, you're seeing, is not what Wesley's seeing. And I know that Cameron, in his podcast, he said when they're doing the cognitive testing and when they're testing dogs, they have 3 people in separate places evaluating those dogs, because that way they can't confer with each other and say, okay, I see that now, or no, I don't see that. And, that's one of the things that it amazes me. And I don't know if it's the experience level. I don't know if it's a knowledge level. And when I think about it as, well, even in the law enforcement world, I've thought about this a lot because I see it. You take a dog out there to man track. This is something that's important. That dog needs to find this person. It's probably it's a high risk situation anyway. And you take old Ace out there, and all right, you just let it, you start doing it, and you're thinking, that dog in training is not very reliable. He struggles, but yet the handler thinks it's the best dog in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they pass certification. Certification is just a minimum standard. It's just saying that the dog can perform X, Y, and Z. And we try to train way above our certification, because if you don't, your dogs aren't where they need to be.
Yeah.
And I thought about this a lot with the houndsman, and myself. When you
let me throw something in there to give some maybe some relevance to what we're talking about. Think about when you went and got your driver's license and the test you took, the driving test you had to take to get your driver's license. That's a very minimum standard. And if you're still driving that like that after you've been driving for 20 years, you haven't improved your ability. Mm-mm. Dale Earnhardt didn't drive a car like you drove. It takes time, and it takes experience, and it takes, sometimes bad experiences and good experiences, but having the ability to step back and truly evaluate and be honest with yourself, going back to what you said. And Heath, this is the thing that I've thought about a lot is houndsmen. This podcast has always tried to, the journey especially, has been set up to increase our resources to learn, to bring in some of those other folks out there that are, doing things with different types of dogs, but it's all comes back to what we can do with our hounds, because houndsmen are terrible about standing around the tailgate and sharing what's known as tribal knowledge. This tribe that's sitting on a desert island somewhere, they may not even know there's electricity out there, and they're trying to figure out all kinds of things, but they don't have the expanded knowledge. And what we always wanted to do with this is not sound like elitist, like, oh, you don't know what you don't know about scent, or you don't understand dog behavior. It's about exposing you to other resources out there so you can be better, and you can become the Dale Earnhardt of the hound world. That's what I always enjoyed, and why I always wanted to produce a podcast. It's not that I've got perfect dogs in my kennel. It's that I'm always looking. I want to share my experience and my resources with all of us so we can all be better.
Right. And, Chad even said it in your AMA, last week about, you have to have an open mind and you have to be willing to learn. I go to Richmond at the end of the month, and I'll be down there for a week, and I will be instructing. I'll be certifying dogs, and I'm also going to be sitting in classes learning what I can learn. Because I'm not going to.
But don't you even learn stuff when you're instructing?
I do.
That was always the thing for me is when I instruct something, it causes me to open my mind and see some other possibilities and break out of, that paradigm that I've developed in my own mind. And it's valuable to share knowledge and things like that. But to think that you've got it all figured out, man, that's because I'm the instructor. So I've got it all figured out, or I'm the most senior bear hunter here. So I've got it all figured out. That's a fatal mistake for you, for your hounds. You will never get any better with a mindset like that.
Well, like I said, you have to be honest with yourself before you can grow. I mean, that's a step. That's a part of growth is being able to step back and look at it. But yeah, I went early on in my training with the dogs. I kind of thought I knew more than everybody else.
I've been through the same.
I was one of those guys. I was training with a group, and I'm like, man, this is not right. This don't make sense. But as I've learned over the years, is they have perfected their craft. The way that they do it, the way that they use things, they've got it down to a T. Now, are there different methods out there? Absolutely. But the method they're using, they're pretty darn good at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I started going to the seminar, and I've said it on this podcast numerous times, when I started going to seminars back in 2013, that's when I was like smacked in the back of the head. It's like, shut up and listen, because you don't know nothing. And I don't. I mean, I'm in a small rural community. I mean, we've got a college here, 2 colleges right here within 5 miles each way you drive, and we're not a metropolis, a thriving metropolis. We're a nice sized town, but when
you have a Texas Roadhouse,
we do.
So that means that see, so there you go. You got a Texas Roadhouse and an Outback. Yeah. So you're a little step above than a rural community.
Yeah.
Now, Reiner, you got a grocery store, but they're not too far away.
Buffalo and more. That's what we got going on in Reiner. Hey, it's pretty good too. But what I'm saying is, when I hook up with some friends of mine from Los Angeles, or the guys down in Florida, Jeff Barrett and them, Lakeland, Florida, those guys see so many more things than we get to see. Their call volume is different. Their deployments are different. And when you sit back and listen to the stuff that they've been through and that they've witnessed, and they're like, okay, we did it this way and this didn't work, it about got us killed, or we got one of our dogs killed, and we had to change and implement this, you kind of taken back and like, gosh, man, I don't know nothing, and I don't. And that's why I'm always trying to learn. And, I have a sign. I probably said it on this podcast. I had a little plaque made, and I put it above my door, and it says ABL. And when you walk out of my office, you see it every time, and it says ABL. Always be learning, because in the job that I'm in, you can always learn something. And I really feel like with the hounds, we can always be learning. There's some little trick, some little something that can make you better, make your hounds better, and make the experience better. So back to the perfect dog. And a good friend of mine up in New York, he was always turning those old dogs loose, always. And we had a conversation, and I'm like, man, like, why are you not putting these young dogs down? He goes, I want to catch bear. And I'm like, okay. But what happens when them old dogs get so old they can't do it? And you just let the young dogs rely on the old dogs. And in looking at that now, because I thought about this when I thought about this podcast, is, he was turning down his most consistent dogs. He wanted to up his chances. He wanted to guarantee that he was going to run and tree game. And you and I had this conversation last week or this week. People can say what they want to say. I enjoy the camaraderie. I really enjoy being with the group of the guys that I'm with. Not so much sometimes when dogs are running everywhere and everybody's running around like a bunch of idiots. But it's about, for me, it's about watching the hounds work, watching them do what they do, and catching game. If you go, it's just, I think it's like, Dr. Hall said, you go a season and don't catch any game, how long are you going to keep doing it? You're right. We're going to be like, maybe this is not, Ben was with me, my buddy was down from New York, and man, we made 2 pretty good tracks Tuesday and Wednesday of that early kill season. We walked about 10 miles Tuesday and covered 7 miles Wednesday. And I said, Ben, on my bucket list was I was going to hike the Appalachian Trail. When I retired, that was something I was going to do. And I said, after speed walking the Appalachian Trail for 2 days, I've changed my mind. It's not on my bucket list anymore. Because it was not
I like
fun.
it. I bet you've walked as many miles on the trail as people that have through hiked it, over the.
I never thought about that, but you're probably right.
Yeah. I know. I was thinking about that this week when I was walking a big portion of the trail a few times this past week. And I've walked the trail in North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, all of it, And I was thinking about this week. I was like, how many miles have I walked on the trail? Have I walked enough miles yet to say I through hiked it?
Yeah, I mean, now that you've said that, over the last 20 plus, 28 years, I would say it's pretty close. Pretty close. Yeah. Because like I said, in that one area we hunted last year, we were on the AT every day.
Yeah.
Every day. 7 miles this way, 7 miles that way. And I know that's not a lot of walking for some people, but, it's more than, more than we like to do sometimes. But
like you said, getting back to what you said about the camaraderie, I think we have to look. This is where you can be honest with yourself too. If you're the guy that just likes being out there, having all the gear, being involved in the hunt, being able to pack a dog every now and then, you can see that in hunting groups. You can recognize those guys, and maybe there's something holding you back. You got work, or for me, it's geography. I was hunting with a group this past week, and you can see even the pack dynamic among hunters. You got the guys that they like to be on the radio and they like to talk. They like to talk about where a bear are going, but they won't put their dogs down. And then you got the guys that are out there. You can recognize the guys that are bear hunters too, or like the guys that are going to be at every tree. Mm-hmm. And so that's part of being honest with yourself. Where are you at in your journey as a hunter? For me, when I was 30 years old, I could flat get through I could get through the country. Now at 53, I'm slowing down a little bit. I still like to think I can, but honestly, my abilities are dropping off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to readjust the way I think about things too. And it's not the same.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, I've noticed it too. I mean, I still go. My dogs were treating there Wednesday, and Wes and Hot Rod, they had got to the dogs. They were already out to AT, and they were just a mile from them when they treed. And I was almost 4, and they was like, "Are you going in there?" I was like, "My dogs are treed. I'm going to get them." And they're like,
That's
"Well,
right.
Wesley and Hot Rod's in there," and I'm like, "That's all right. I'm gonna leave my dogs out." And so me and Ben, we packed up, walked in there, and they had to wait on us. I mean, they waited on us probably it took me probably an hour to get in there where they was at. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to go. I mean, that's a commitment that I've made to myself and my dogs. If I turn them loose, it's my obligation to go catch them. If they get treed, it's my obligation to go get them. That's a commitment that I've made. But I want to bring up another topic that was brought up to me this last week before last. And, I don't know. I struggle with this. I got really aggravated during the early kill season, and I don't like if hunting's not fun, then we shouldn't do it. And a part of me is the serious person. It's all business, and I've been that way a lot of my life. And when I put it don't matter if it's in the law enforcement side. When I put my dog down, I expect that dog to perform. When I do it when I hunt and I put that dog down, I expect results. And I also take into consideration, are they in shape? Is it hot? Are they, I'm not just saying that, when I put them down.
I just thought about something. I talk about not being able to trust dogs, but, when I do drop them on the ground, if it's a coyote, I expect them to run the hair off until I figure out what it is.
That's right.
That is, I'm not going to turn a dog loose that's going to go out there and turn around and look at me and think, be lazy or not use your senses. If I make a mistake and dump them on junk or whatever, I expect them to do it with gusto.
That's right. Do it like you mean it. That's right.
Yep.
No, you're right. But and this all turns back, and I'm going to roll this over to, we're talking about the perfect dog and the lack thereof. But I got really aggravated, and I was told, Heath, when you're hunting, like during training season, it was just a couple of us. You was here, there's just 2 or 3 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a handful of dogs, and that's pretty much it. But, when like the first week of kill season, December rolls around, I mean, people come out of the woodwork. It's like, where you been all year? And I get it. Work's in the, work, people have responsibilities. I get all that. No, that's not what I'm talking about at all. But I was told that when I'm hunting in a group and there's lots of us there, that I need to drop my standards. And I about fell out of my chair. I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, you just need to go along and don't worry about it. And a part of me wants to do that. Part of me wants to just be happy-go-lucky and, man, let's just have a good time. But the serious side of me wants results.
Yep.
And I struggle with that within myself. Like when I take that step back and I look in the mirror, I'm telling myself, okay, so what's the issue? And it's the part of, I've been putting some boot leather in these dogs the last 2 months. Like I've been off pretty much. Well, I didn't work any in September. Like I didn't work any. I hunted. August, I kind of let the weather dictate what I was going to do. If it was going to be extremely hot, I worked, and if it didn't, I hunted. And when I drop those dogs loose, I want results. I want to be able to depend on you, Chris, when you turn your dogs loose. I want to be able to say, okay, when Chris's dogs are opening, I'm packing them up.
Right.
And I the early kill season, I struggled with that, and I got very aggravated. And there's no excuse in it. I mean, I got to do better myself. But I'm just being honest with myself. Be honest with yourself. What are you out here for? We're out here to have a good time. And yeah, we want to catch some bear in doing that, and it makes it a lot funner when you're successful. Like I said, I go back to what Dr. Hall said, man. If you hunting 2 or 3 weeks and you're not catching bear, then you get. And I got discouraged at mid-September. I think you were here actually. Maybe, yeah. We run off the north, and the dog Kate run one in there about 2.5 hours, 3 hours by herself, and Wesley ended up catching her off the mountain. And every bear that I run after that, they didn't tree. I seen some nice bear. We had a nice bear caught on it. That's the one that hurt one of my dogs, and we seen them crossing the roads, and we seen them going into the north, and we seen them in the cliffs, and they weren't getting treed. And I started getting very frustrated. Like, come on, man, I know you guys can catch a bear. What's the deal? And then, it was about a 2-week spell of that going. And I was even fussing to Wesley. Wesley's like, quit being a crybaby. That's what he said, And, it's just frustrating. I'm like, I know these dogs can catch bear. Why all of a sudden am I not catching them? I'm seeing them, but I ain't catching them. And we were running in some rough country. You've been in.
That's because the bear were getting legged up too.
They were definitely getting them in shape, weren't they?
Yeah.
And then it seemed like after that 2-week span went by, and in that 2-week span, we probably seen, I don't know, 4, 6, 7, 8 bear that we did not tree. We seen them, like I said, we seen them crossing roads. We seen them going underneath the ledges, or we had them caught on the ground. And then after that 2-week period went by, it was like, bam, here we go. I moved to a different location, and first day, bam, treat a bear. I'm like, he's like, there you go. Now you can quit whining. I'm like, well, what was so different? What was so different? And that's kind of what I got to thinking about, the perfect dog. I'm like you, Chris. My dogs are far, far from what my expectations are. Every one of them, I can pick out holes and flaws in every one of them. Yep, and, me too. I use them as a pack, just like I was talking about Mac. I use Mac when I want to get my young dog started. I use him to get it started and let them go. And that's all. That's his job. That's all he's got to do.
That's his job.
Yep. He's straight. So I know when he opens that I don't have to worry about it, and I let him get it lined out and let the young dogs take over. I can sit here and poke holes in every one of my dogs. I can tell you every one of their flaws, every one of them. And I know.
Well, what were you getting frustrated? Were you getting frustrated with dogs, or were you getting frustrated with people?
Both.
I think that's where you
both
peel the layers of the onion back. Because I'm the same way. I can get frustrated with people. And that's a hard thing for me, because when I bear hunt, 90% of the time I'm hunting because, somebody else is letting me hunt with them. And when I get to an area, I have to remind myself that I'm the guest here. Mm-hmm. When I go to Tazewell, I'm hunting with McBride's down there, and I'm their guest. It's all public property, mm-hmm. and I could go down there and run through it and stuff, and there wouldn't be a problem. I don't think they would even care. But for me, I don't want to just know if my dogs can pack a bear. I want to know if they can start a bear. I want to know if they can run a bear. I want to know if they can catch their own bear. So a lot of times it causes me to go. The best thing that happened to us last year was when you told me to take the low trail down through that country, mm-hmm. And I like doing that. I like being off by myself with me and my dogs, and not getting out of pocket or going into places where people can't help me or trying to be, exclude people. But for me personally, I need to go places and do things with just me and my dogs to really evaluate what I got. if I'm walking through somewhere and it's like, hey, I'll walk with you, and I'm going to take a couple dogs, well, then I can't really evaluate what I got. Did my dog do that? Did your dog do that? What is a combination?
Yeah.
So at times that's where I get sideways about some stuff, and maybe look like I'm trying to be a single man operation. That's not what I'm trying to do at all. I'm just trying to evaluate what I got. And I can't do that if I got 12 other people around me trying to, going with me.
Yeah. And that's just it. You can't evaluate your own dogs when you're when you've got 10 other people. You can't. You just can't do it. You have to get all. Right. And I've told all the guys that I hunt with, and I've told them all. The only way to find out what you got is you're gonna have to get off by yourself some, and you're gonna have to do that. And I think one of the things that really frustrated me during the early season was, again back to the dog. I know what my flaws are in my pack. I know, and I know, and I think it's because of the level of experience and training that I have that I try to be very smart about how I use those dogs. Like, it's like playing chess, Okay, so I got these two. I'll add this one, or I take away this one. I put this one on the lead, whatever it is. And then you get out here and everybody else is just, just kind of running it muck. And they don't have a clue. They don't know. And I'm just sitting there scratching my head. And I'm like, well, if you don't know, why are you doing it? Like, why would you turn dog X loose if you don't know? And use X as that start dog? And that's just, I'm just putting that out there. It's not, so I think that's what really frustrated me is about, also being smart and upping your chances, making your chances better by being a smarter hunter. And then, go back to, everybody looks at dogs differently. Like I said, you've had this conversation, man, when we go test dogs, and I usually take one or two other people with me because that's the way you should do it. And you come back as that group and you start collaborating, you're like, man, there's a lot of difference going on here, and in hounds, I see it in hounds. And this has been my philosophy for a long time. And Ariel and I had this conversation here within the last couple of weeks. If you don't tree it and you don't see it, you don't know. That's just the way it is. I can guess and I can assume and I can say, yeah, my dog had a bear. But unless I tree it or catch it or see it, I can't be 100%. And sometimes even at that, I'm not 100% because I know my dog's left out there on junk or was running junk. And the next thing I know, 2 hours later, they're sitting underneath the bear.
Hey, too bad there aren't competition bear hunts.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, you trash out of here on junk and fall off on a coon and be deep and lonely.
Yeah, my dogs have done, especially last year. I know for a fact one time that they were running junk. Spook and Kate were running junk, and they split up. And that's when it I was like, this ain't right. Because they stay together pretty good. And Kate dropped off and come down low and come into a creek, and she started going up the creek. Well, Spook made a big loop and come back up that creek right in behind her. And anyway, they ended up pulling up treed. And so you tell me how she drops off the mountain, hits the creek, starts going up the creek. He makes a half a mile loop in there, comes in right behind her, and they both end up on a bear.
Yeah.
Like, in my mind, I'm just being realistic. It didn't happen. One of them switched. One of them switched over, and they ended up tree. It was a little bear too. It wasn't a big bear. But yeah, even sometimes when they end up on the right game, you still don't know. You still don't know what took place in between. But back to the conversation, everybody sees something so differently, and my expectations of my dogs are high, and they should be. I want to hold a standard. I want the dogs to perform a certain way and do certain things, and I accept that mistakes will be made. Got that? It's going to happen, and it goes back to what you said. But when you're running, with 5, 6, 7, 8 other people, it's hard to pick out what your dogs are doing and what they're not doing, and it's hard. It's especially hard to fix it in that time of chaos. And that was something that I think hit me that early kill is like I can't clean some of this up right now because there's just too much going on. And if I give my dog an opportunity, he's going to end up somewhere else or with somebody else's dogs or vice versa.
Well, that brings me to another thought, and something that I've considered in myself, because I when I was training competition coon dogs, I was a hard guy to hunt with. If you wanted to come and hunt with me, I wasn't very tolerant. I burned my own kids out because I was so driven to have good dogs, and I ran a lot of people off. And with this, the Western bear hunting guys, I've hunted out there, and it's more of an individual thing. There aren't a lot of hunting groups. The hunting group thing is for bear is an Appalachian culture. And so when you step into that culture, you got to be tolerant, because not everybody's expectations are going to meet my expectations. My expectations are going to be different. And you take the dynamic of the hunting group, man, there's guys that can run the radio or things like that, and you're glad to have them. You're glad to have guys that are happy to be out there and be willing to drive down on the next road down the mountain to cut your dogs off or to keep them from getting hit. Mm-hmm. You're thankful that they're not doing their own thing. So it's not that conversation for me, complaining about hunting with other guys. That's not it at all. It's we as hunters, we have to step back and realize that not everybody's going to have my expectations. And there's people out there that have much higher expectations than I do. There's no doubt about it. My attitude about hunting's changed a little bit over the years. The types of dogs that I'll keep and keep working with have changed a little bit, and it's all about the journey. It's all about maturing and things like that for me. So I'm glad to have those guys that show up on the mountain. I mean, I hunt with guys in West Virginia. They don't even have a dog. They don't even have a dog box, but they've got a Garmin. They've got a radio. Yep. They want to be a part of the hunt. And, man, we're glad to have them. There's a lot of times when we're glad to have them. Well, who's the guy there in Virginia that he's got a Toyota truck, he's got a dog box, he's got a radio, he's got a Garmin, but he doesn't own a dog?
Clater. I mean,
Clater, yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. Most of the guys in our group will give
that guy's an MVP. There's days when that guy's the MVP.
He is. In fact, he was the Wesley and Forrest and Greg and Hunter's dogs had a bear on the ground, and they ended up crossing out of the area we were at and crossed over the mountain and ended up coming down to the hardtop. And here, the Clater's sitting right there waiting on them. I mean,
you bet.
Most of the guys in our group will give you the shirt off their back. That's what kind of group I hunt with. I mean, they will do whatever they can for you, help you, go out of their way. I mean, my truck broke down back during training season. Transmission went out of it. Forrest spent all day. We went him and Greg brought my dogs home. We went and borrowed a trailer and a truck that Forrest's friend had. We went all the way back. I mean, an hour drive back up on the mountain to get the truck, hauled it back to the garage. I mean, that's the type of people that...
You pulled that Chevy out of the mountains with a Ford, didn't you?
With a Dodge.
But my gosh,
but
that's even worse.
Let me tell you, old Chevy's back in business now. We got her fixed. Hey, them boys running around with them Yoders, they give me a rough...
No, don't even go there.
Yeah,
we don't break down.
Yeah, that's right. When you get 310,000, we'll talk. That's what I told Wesley. He keeps running that yap. I said, when you get 310,000 like this truck's got on, we'll have a conversation.
You bet.
But that's the type of guys that I hunt with, and I mean we have such a good group, and it's a small group. I mean, you've been here, and we do have we've got 3 or 4 guys that man the truck and track for us, and I mean you couldn't. I mean, that early kill season, a lot of things went through my mind, and I enjoy hunting by myself. I'm selfish. I can't say that I'm not. I enjoy getting out with just my dogs and watching them work and watching them do what they're bred to do genetically and catching that game by themselves. There's no other joy. Like, that's the highest joy for me. But I also
not everybody's there yet, Heath. Not everybody's there yet.
Well, true.
And when we get, the dangerous part of that is, for me, is realizing that my goals, somebody else's goals for hunting may be different than mine. And I have to realize that if I'm not getting the opportunities to do the things that I want to do, it's because of me. It's because I've caused that. I haven't gone up this trail, and I've decided that I wasn't going to walk through this area with my dogs. There's a lot of times where, guys aren't real. If somebody just came off a 14-mile hike down the AT, they're probably not real crazy about going with my pot lickers up this holler, walking down through there. We'll sit out here and we'll support you.
Yeah.
But, so for me, it's like, okay, this is my time. Somebody's got this bear rolling. I'm not involved in it, but I need to be here to support them.
Right.
But when there's nothing going on, it's slack time. It's like, hey, I'm going to park here. I'm going to walk through, let people know what you're doing. So it's just, it's a developmental thing. It's a leadership thing. It's a character thing. Instead of sitting back and griping and saying, I can't test my dogs because I can't get off by myself. Well, yeah, I bet you can. If you want to, I bet you can.
That's right. But what I was going to say is what I have learned, and you touched on it earlier, that, when I was in my 30s, I hunted by myself 98% of the time. I had one or two other guys that was with me, and I mean, like, literally walking with me. But as I've gotten older, I can't cover the ground that I used to cover as quick. And I need those guys. Like, I need them to cut my dogs off when they cross two mountain ranges and I can't get out of the mountains fast enough to get around to them. I need help. And I'm blessed that, again, the group that we hunt with is, phenomenal. And I like I said, I caught myself in the middle of an interpersonal battle during that early kill season.
You had a conflict with yourself.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I did. And I've talked myself.
I have those all the time.
I've talked myself off the ledge. But back to the whole, back to the whole thing. Back to the dogs and not being perfect, and we have dogs that are more consistent, and we have dogs that we rely on and we trust, and as you're training a pack and as this journey. Because, like we've said it, you said it, I've said it, it's a process. We're going to have those couple dogs that we can rely on. But those dogs have still, if you're honest with yourself, they're going to have a flaw. Maybe it's not, maybe it's not fast enough. Maybe it doesn't keep up with your front dogs. Maybe it doesn't have a good enough nose. Maybe it's got a medium nose and not a cold nose like you want. Or I've run into this twice. Here recently, the dog's having grit. I don't care.
Oh my! Didn't bring that up, didn't you?
And the dog that got hurt was the dog that was on the fence with me because he wouldn't stay on a bear on the ground. Mm-hmm. And then he stayed for over 2 hours and got obliviated.
He got crushed.
Yes. Yeah. I had my old dog that passed away here a month or so ago, Jimmy. She was a white dog. We all heard me talk about the white dogs. I'm not a fan. And she was as good as bear dog as they came. She had a medium nose. I look at
your kennel, all I see is white dogs except for old Mac.
Well, they got brown and black on them. They're not solid white like a ghost. But she was the same way. She caught as many bears as any dog that I've had, and she was fast, super fast, medium nosed. But if a bear got to chasing her, she come out. She come out. So, if we look at our dogs and we look at that, perfection, like the dog's going to have something that you don't like.
Yeah.
Ring. This is what brought this up. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you this, mention this. So, I've been suspicious of the same thing with Diablo. And you've also seen Diablo take tracks and carry him and be right there with every other dog. So there's times when he can look like $1 million. When he strikes a bear, or we get on a bear, he can look like $1 million. But I'm suspicious that on a walking bear, that when it turns around and looks at him, if he doesn't have the right backup with him, then he's going to peel. And he may peel without the right backup. I don't know, but that's the value of hunting with other people with solid dogs. I gotta find something to run with Cajun that's got a little more stick, because Cajun's going to end up getting crushed himself. He's getting down in there by himself, and now he's a lone ranger against a rough bear, and that can be dangerous too. So, yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, I'm looking. I'm always looking. I'm always evaluating. What do I need? How can I be more successful?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole conversation that brought this up was, Ring. Wesley was talking to me about Ring, and again, Ring has treated more bear than any dog that I've had solo. I mean, dog didn't need no help. But man, you talking about a problem dog. Not in the pen, not in the kennel, easy around the house. But you talking about a hard-headed SOB. Like, like I told you, I can't tell you the times that I've dropped him off the tailgate to collar up dogs and let them clean out. And he's up on, he's this is back when we had the beep collars. If I had a Garmin, I could have fixed a lot of the stuff. Of course, I know more now than I did then too, but like he'd be almost out of hearing, and you'd hear him open, and he'd top over a mountain, and you'd go chase him around the rest, for however long, and he'd be treed.
I can see how that could be a problem. You stop in the mornings, let everything clean out, you're calling him up, and it's like, where's Ring? He's causing stress, even though that he's going to go do what he needs to do. That's not helping the dogs that you want to get exposure to. They're still on the tailgate that you haven't collared up.
I can't tell you the times that happened to me with him. I can't tell you the times that, free casting him, be walking him, and all of a sudden he's gone. Like if you didn't keep an eye on him, like literally an eye on him, if you didn't keep an eye on him, he'd slip out of there and he'd be gone. And
it's almost like they do it to you.
Yeah.
It's like, he's looking at another dog. I'm going to slip off. I'm gone. They're looking for that opportunity.
Yeah. And I can tell you a story when he was young. I mean, I'm going to tell you, he's the trashiest dog I owned for a long time. I spent more nights sleeping in my truck trying to keep him off roads running coyotes than any dog that I've owned. I mean, period. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
But he, I walked out to AT where we hunted last year, and I had Belle and Clyde, my two blue dogs. I had a dog named Smokey and Ring. And Ring struck early in the morning and took off. Belle went up, checked him, come back. I know it's not right. And I kept on walking. I just let him go. And we walked, we was 3 or 4 miles in. Belle strikes, turns left-handed, crosses down a holler. Well, Clyde's with her. And then out of the blue, here comes Ring out of nowhere, crossing right where they struck. And down through there they went. I packed in Smokey, and they run all the way back to where my truck was at and parked and treed within 200 yards of my truck. But that was the stuff that he done that absolutely just infuriated me. And as he got older, he done less and less and less and less of it. But those first 2 and 3 years, I mean, I can't tell you the times that I contemplated selling him. I can't tell you the times that I wanted to kill him. I mean, like, I stayed in a shelter on the AT up Stony Creek one night, listening to him run on that mountain. And every time I get close to him, he'd shut up and go on. And every time I get close to him, I just finally quit. And I went down that shelter and just sat down. And, like, one of my best dogs, I mean, I'm telling you, one of my best dogs was a problematic dog. Problematic. Now, he got better as he got older, but, I mean, that was Ring.
Well, what made you keep him? Let's get to, what made you keep him? Why did you say I'm going to hang in there with him? Because that's one thing that I've struggled with in the past. It's like, man, this dog isn't where I want it to be, but I'm going to hang in there with it. Or should I hang in there with it? Or they, you'll see people say, oh, they'll make another one every, they make them every day. What was it about Ring that made you hang with it?
Well, a couple things. I was too young, dumb, and poor to buy another dog.
Yeah.
I seen flashes of greatness in him. I seen him take bear and run bear and tree him by himself through a pack of dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that I could fix it. And at that time, looking at it now, at that time, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I just kept turning him loose because I didn't even have a shocking collar at that point in time. I had to borrow one. We had the old beep beep collars, and I'm telling you, the miles that dog put on me. And we were in Canada. I told you, I think I said this on a podcast. We were in Canada, and he went in there and treed through a swamp, and we trudged that swamp in there, and he was slick treed. And Rodney Galusha was with me, and Rodney's like, I'd shoot that thing. I'd shoot him. And I went home.
I probably told you the same thing.
Well, yeah, and that was just one of several of those. And I had went to New York on my way from Canada. Like I come back down and hunted with Anthony and Bob, and we were sitting up on a cliff. And I had went to him treed over there on a big lake, and he was slick treed. And we got back up to the top of the mountain, went to sit down, take a break, and Anthony's like, "What you gonna do, Heath? What you gonna do?" I'm like, "I don't know." And Bob's like, "You're never gonna break that dog." I said, "I know. I don't know what to do." And I almost come home and sold him. Like I was that close, and I don't know why I didn't at the time because I was so frustrated with him.
Yeah.
And it was that year that we had snow on the ground pretty much the whole December, and I was just putting him in a track. And that's when he flipped. That's when he made his change. But again, I was putting him in bear track after bear track after bear track. I wasn't giving him a chance to go out and run junk.
Right.
Looking at it now, which I've done a lot with him, he was still junky. I still had some junk races that at the time I didn't think I did, but now looking at it, I definitely did. But yeah, I mean, I didn't have money to buy another dog. That Frosty had died. Frosty had lymphoma and ended up dying during that period. And I was almost to the point of quitting. Like when Frosty died, it hurt me. I was attached to him. He was my first true, and I want to say bear hound, but he was my first true dog that treated bear by himself. And that's why I ended up getting Belle and Clyde and a couple other dogs because I didn't have nothing. I didn't have nothing at that time. I had Frosty. Literally, I went to the Bear Woods with one dog. That's what I had. And I took a bunch of coon dogs that I had with me, but they never panned out. But yeah, I didn't have no money, didn't know no better. And I thought that I could fix it. And in my mind, when that year, and that was 2006, so Ring was 2004, 2007 is the year that he flipped. And after that, it was we just clicked right along. Like I said, I know I had races and stuff, but like I said, that was one of my best dogs that I've owned. I mean, when it come to catching bear, now he done it. And if he had company, fine, and if he didn't, fine. I mean, it didn't matter to him. Right. He was not a type of dog that was going to get hurt. He'd walk a bear all day long by himself, but he'd stay back. Tremendous tree dog, big mouth on him, big ball on a track, switch over to a big ball chop on a tree. Fast dog had, and Maddie's even asked me now. She's even asked me. She's like, "Dad, do you think Ring could run with Spook?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he could." I mean, he was a fast dog. And he had that, again, the hard-headedness for him. I mean, he would run. He was one of those dogs, and I think I told you this here a couple of weeks ago, what I was looking for. He was one of those dogs that you had to go get. He wasn't stopping. He wasn't stopping until he fell out. And I literally mean fall out. You had to go get him. And that's part of that hard-headedness I thought was in him. So, but that brought up the whole topic of, the perfect dog. And we got to talk, Wesley and I, we got to talking about Ring and got to looking at his success, what he ended up being. And, I was like, Wesley, he had, and Wesley hunted with me when Ring was 2 years old. I mean, Wesley can tell you everything about him because he hunted with me and the problems that I had. So that brought up the topic. That's kind of why we wanted to talk about it. Is, even some of our best dogs have flaws or holes in them, and some have more than others. I've been with some really good dogs in the woods, some really good dogs that are rough. If you want to look at that perfect dog, dogs catch bear by themselves. Bear, they what you consider a bear dog, but then at the end of the day, they had a little bit of illness about them. Is that a problem for me, for you? I mean, you got to look at what your goals are and what you're looking for, and I just don't think a perfect dog exists. I think we have some really, really, really consistent dogs. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you've got to find something that's consistent. You got to see. I've said this about that Yog Terrier that I picked up. People are like, what are you going to do with that little thing? Well, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with him. I know he's going on some tracks now. I know he's trying to do some of that stuff. Is he ever going to run with Spook and Kate? No. So I got to find a spot for him. But the thing I like about him is that everything he does with a good attitude. And I like a dog that has just got a good attitude. It's like they don't remember I want them to remember that they're not supposed to do stuff like when they run the last junk race. But after you get on them and you correct them, they come back to the truck. The next time you open the box, it's like, okay, what are we doing now? That's the attitude I'm looking for. Being able to, like that great quarterback that doesn't remember the last interception he threw. Goes out there on the field. It's like, okay, this is a new series. We're going to do it right this time. And he goes out there with that attitude. He's not hanging his head. He's not kicking the dirt, pouting around. It's, okay. I'm the Nolan Ryan. I just hit the last 3 batters, but I'm going to also lead the baseball world in the most strikeouts ever. Yeah. So that's what I look for. And I think when you got dogs like that you need to hang with them, and they can be frustrating. They can just make you want to pull your hair out, but there's, like you said, and I've used the same phrase of those flashes of greatness and being able to recognize what dogs I put my time into. And I think as we have some success and we have some failures, we know what we can work with. But I also think it's a personal choice of what you're actually looking for in hunting. Your goals for hunting may be completely different than mine. And I think we can all do a lot of work to understand that everybody has different goals, and, try not to be as frustrated as what we can be. I just find the dogs that work for you, stick with them, and be tolerant of other people. And nobody's going to hand you success. You've got to go out and find ways to make your own success. Your dogs aren't going to make you successful. Other people aren't going to make you successful. That's what I liked about the interview you did with Alex last week was, that guy he's like, I'm going to bear hunt. And he figured out how to catch bear. Go for it, man. That's awesome. I love it. I love stories like that.
Yep. And he's done it on his own. Just talking about attitude. I'll add this real quick and we'll cut this off. I've got a dog right now that's mediocre, and I've kept some mediocre dogs around. And the reason I've kept them around is they're not a problem. I don't have to go chasing them down in the woods. They always find their way out. They're not causing me a problem, and they run and tree.
Mm-hmm.
And are they my quality? Are they what
They're
I'm
never going to be your all-stars.
Right. They're not going to be your all-stars, but they are not causing me a problem. And if I need a dog to get in there and do something, they do it. And, you were asking me about Ring. It's kind of flat. When you were talking about that, it kind of hit me with Ring about why I kept him. Well, at the time, Frosty had passed away. Belle was just she was just a year and a half old, and she wasn't treeing bear or anything at times. I was coon hunting her. She was junky as all get out. She'd run deer through 2 counties. I didn't have anything else. So this is what I had to work with. I mean, this is what you got. So that was another factor with Ring. But, you're talking about attitude. That means a lot. Like I said, dog's not a problem in the kennel. Dog's not a problem hauling. They listen extremely well. I don't have to go in the woods. I don't have to walk 3 miles in the woods to pick them up. They find their way out. They always come out. They're always looking for you. That is another thing that I look at, and I'm more than likely will keep you around if you're that style of dog, even though you're not a superstar.
Right.
So,
well, you look at the greatest, like look at Larry Bird or look at Michael Jordan. They didn't play with superstars. They never played with superstars. They were superstars, but there were 4 other people that had to be on the court to win.
Yeah.
And everybody found their spots, and some of those guys, I mean, they're talented basketball players. Don't get me wrong, but they weren't superstar level. They weren't Michael Jordan, Larry Bird level.
Right.
And but they stayed on the team.
Right. Yeah. And that's what bear hunting's about. That's why we run a pack, and everybody contributes. All the dogs have different attributes, and like I said, being smart, hunting smart, using those dogs to their strengths. That's something that I find myself trying to do more and more and more. Instead of try to give myself the best opportunity for success. That's where it's at. So.
I used to tell my guys when I was a supervisor, they always felt like they needed to be perfect, and I'd sign my signature on my emails when I would send them out is, don't strive for perfection, strive for excellence.
That's right.
There's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Don't settle for mediocrity, strive for excellence. You're never going to be perfect.
That's right.
Never.
That's right. And when we accept that and recognize that, we will become better.
Yep. When you can get back to the truck and like, man, what were those trashy dogs doing down there? You just look at people and you're saying they were doing the best they can, and
they were giving it all they had.
They were doing the best they can, and you just laugh it off, and you're not carrying your ego with those dogs, and you're striving for excellence. Deep down inside you got issues, but you're not you accept responsibility for it and just roll with it. And that's hard for me to do. It's like, I'm throwing rocks in a glass house here, but it's because I know that I deal with it. And so that's why I'm aware of it and cognitive of it. And that's why I can talk about it.
Yeah. Me too. I mean, like I said, that's one thing that I try to do. I try to reflect and see where I'm at personally, professionally, with my dogs. I can't grow without it. I can't. And my goal is to be better. Not better than anybody else, just better than I was yesterday. That's my goal.
Yeah. When you accept the fact that you're and become your own worst critic, then nobody else will be harder on you than you can be on yourself.
Yeah.
So, and nobody's going to get you where you want to be except you.
That's right. Strap your boots up and get after it.
Yep,
all right, Chris,
sure.
I think we've covered it. I think that
sure did.
We've put enough out there for people to ponder and think about. And, we had a good, like I said, this is a whole different podcast. We had a good training season. I'll talk about it in another podcast, but man, it was rough on me. Trucks, COVID, dogs, I tell you. But
yep.
Well, we're gonna weather this storm that's coming through, and we've had rain for a couple of days. And guys, we appreciate you listening. We always appreciate the feedback. We couldn't do this without you. It's very important. So I definitely appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to the journey and listening to me babble on about things for hours. So
yeah, I do too, man. I appreciate, this wouldn't be possible. Heath being on this podcast wouldn't be possible without the support of our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
We've enjoyed some success through the month of September as a podcast, and none of this would have been possible if people hadn't have been tuning in and watch our social media stuff. There's other ways that you can get involved and help support this podcast, and shop for some of our gear. Go to our new website.
Oh yeah,
houndsmenxp.com, and we've got a lot of new shirts and gear, and we're coming up with new designs, and fly the colors out there. That helps support us and keeps us on the air. So
yep. All right. Well, Chris, thank you for joining me this morning. Like I said, I appreciate you filling in.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, man.
Yep. But guys, on the journey, this is what we're about. Teach, training, and learning. Catch you guys in the next episode.